good.
I'll have to tell you, Nate, I can count on one hand how many times Andrew has actually not wanted to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, kind of flattering, I think.
So tell us what happened.
Okay, well, December 7th. Well, it's been a rather wet winter for Southern Nevada, Vegas area. And December 7th, we had a decent rain, and there's a area not too far from where I live that I like to go off-roading.
Okay.
And so had decent rain, was heading out to go play in the mud, brought my dog along, and went out for about a half hour and was on my way home, and my Jeep started to hydroplane sideways.
Oh.
I had no control over it. I was only going about 35, 40 mile an hour, and as soon as I felt the rear end of the vehicle start catching up with me, that was it. And it was a ridiculously aggressive and violent flip. It flipped about 3.5 times, my Jeep did, and landed on the roof. And I came to, it knocked me out. I came to about 3.5 hours later. I didn't know what time it was, didn't know,
wow.
Just trying to piece together what's going on. And my dog actually woke me up and stayed by my side the whole time. And so tried to move, and if I had to put a number on it, I'd guess I was about 80% paralyzed. I had spinal damage. I couldn't lift my head up, and one of my legs, I couldn't even wiggle toes. And so I was telling myself, well, it's going to be a cold night. I got to get out of here. And so I tried my best to crawl out of the Jeep. I told myself if I could crawl, I could stand. If I could stand, I could walk, and I'll be okay. And I couldn't even get out of I couldn't get out. So what's next? And tried to see if I could stay warm with my dog. And no, that's not going to work. And I'm like, well, I wonder where my phone's at. And I had no idea where it was, if it was broken, if a button had been pushed in the accident, and now the battery's dead or what. So I figured it's worth a try. I mean, it is dead silent. We're way out in the middle of nowhere. And so I cleared my throat best I could. And, hey, Siri, and started call so-and-so, call so-and-so, rapping off names. And she heard me, and
wow.
unable to connect, out of range, out of service. And I'm like, man, well, hey, Siri, call 911. And she said, connecting emergency services. And I was able to guide search and rescue out to where I was, and just from being familiar with the area, and they had a helicopter waiting for me at the closest pavement, which is about 6 miles away. And the helicopter took me into the major hospital into Vegas, and I had moved or dislocated my C1 through 5 vertebrae. I had broken my C6 and C7.
Oh, jeez.
The disc between the C6 and C7 had slipped out and compressed my spinal cord. And so there was about 4 different factors after the X-rays and MRIs were done that from my understanding with the surgeons and doctors, that 4 different factors that they've seen make it so someone couldn't take your call today, and I lived through all of it, and so they had admitted me into surgery at 2:30 in the morning, where they straightened out whatever was crooked and removed the disc and caged the broken vertebrae in titanium, and they went in from the front to do that, to operate on my spine, so all kinds of good stuff had to be moved around for that.
Oh, jeez.
And so they were kind of preparing for full paralysis, and I was able to stand up and put one foot in front of the other.
Is that right?
A couple days after surgery, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
I mean, things aren't easy for me. The 2 vertebrae that I broke are the nerve endings for your arms and hands. And so if you've ever woken up from a nap after laying on your arm and go to grab your phone really quick, like, that's how I am all day long. Like, it's difficult to text or to open a water bottle and just little things. And it'll all get back to me, but
so
slowly,
what's the prognosis now?
Just time. The follow-up with my surgeon, he said, I'm healing great, but he reminded me, he said, you didn't stub your toe. You didn't break an arm. It's not a leg. You broke 2 vertebrae, moved 5 others. I have a cadaver bone that replaces the disc that they had to remove. So he's going through everything that happened, and he's like, this is, you know, if you're still having this tingling in your arms and hands, like a year from now, we'll look into more MRIs and physical therapy. But as of now, you just got to sit it out.
Oh, wow. But you know what?
Yeah.
But, you know, think about what could have happened if you didn't have the wherewithal to ask Siri to call emergency services, right?
Oh, man, it would have been a bad night. Yeah.
And it's...
Yeah, if I'd have made it, it would have been, you know, some hypothermia probably, you know. It was getting down to freezing.
And so have you set up a GoFundMe?
Yes, ma'am. A good friend of mine set one up for me. It's Nathaniel Felix at GoFundMe. And I'm very appreciative. I can't express how appreciative I am of the friends that have helped me out. Sure. It's more than I could have ever expected. You know, I don't have a rich uncle, and a couple people have asked, well, when did you really get scared? And I said, well, when the bills started coming in.
Well, and you know, the thing about medical bills is that they're going to keep coming in. And, you know, I've seen this with certain family members that, you know, you think that it should be covered and it might be covered, but then it turns out that it's just not covered. And for everybody who's listening and watching, we'll put a link over to Nate's GoFundMe page and over at komando.com in the show pics. And it serves as a reminder for all of us that if you haven't set up your phone with Hey Siri or Google Assistant to say, okay, Google, do it now while you're thinking about it.